Hello, YouTubers. I want to welcome you to another edition of Park and Bin Gear. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at an amp that I ran across. Quite interesting, a little different than what I usually show on this channel. And for those who are not familiar with my style of playing, if you like, basically I use guitar and guitar loops done on the fly. And in addition to that, I emulate bass on guitar. Okay, now, for the bass part, I basically use octave pedals, pretty much. I mean, bass emulation. It sounds like bass, basically. You know, quite simple. However, a long time ago, I discovered that the guitar speakers just could not handle that low end. And it didn't sound like a bass, you know. And it was kind of frustrating. In fact, sometimes I'd have to play the bass real softly because the speakers would distort, right? Which made for a really lousy sound. Eventually, after a lot of experimentation, I ended up using little cross boxes. And those would split the signal to a guitar signal and a low-end signal, which I would then run into either a PA or a bass amp. Okay, now, as a result, you know, I had to get a bass amp, and I did. And it was a Hartke, which is a really good brand of bass amps, basically. Depending on how you look at it, fortunately or unfortunately, I got a huge Hartke, big. So big that it has casters, and it's like 150 watts. And I just love that thing. And it really does sound like a bass. I mean, it's convincing, it's realistic, if you like. So I was hoping to find something smaller, right, that still had that convincing bass sound. So I went ahead and bought a Dean Bassola, right? It was a pretty big looking amp. However, I have to say, the speaker was quite weak. And it was only like 40 watts. And the speaker was a 12-inch speaker, rather than the 15-inch speaker in the Hartke. So, and it just wasn't very convincing bass-wise. You know, now maybe if I had been playing actual bass through it, you know, it would have sounded better, I'm not sure. So my hunt continued, and keep in mind, I mean, these had to be inexpensive, you know. It's part of my setup, my sound, but it's not the priority, you know. Obviously the guitar amps and so on. Now, if you've been following the channel, you know that I recently purchased a Steinberger Spirit guitar, and during that time, the guy who sold it to me said, "Hey, you know, I've got this bass amp for sale." And I was like, "What?" And I came to find out that it's a Hartke A100 bass amplifier. I mean, it was almost too good to be true, because it was, I already had the big Hartke. So this was a smaller version, pretty much. Very similar, in fact. It still has a 15-inch speaker, but instead of 150 watts, it's 100 watts. 7-band EQ, direct out, very similar to the large one that I have. And this one was kind of interesting because you could stand it up straight or lean it back at an angle. Very interesting. And the price was right. Now these normally go for about $300, $350 used. And I got a really good deal on it. Especially, he took into consideration that I also bought the Spirit guitar, so he gave me an even better deal. One that I couldn't refuse. So I went ahead and got it, and we can take a look at it here. Okay, so here it is. This is a Hartke A100 100-watt bass amp. Pretty straightforward here. Right? Not too big, 48 pounds. Has passive and active inputs. Volume, bass, treble, 7-band EQ, limiter, headphone jack, power. Now that's the front, so it seems pretty straightforward. Okay, now take a look at the back here. It's very interesting. Power, speaker out, XLR direct out, which sounds very nice. Effects loop, right? And here's something weird. Coming out of it, see this? Right, it's like a passive radiator type thing. And here are these feet. 2 feet on the side. And the reason is because you can have it in the position of standing up or like that. Let me show you. Standing up at an angle like that. Right? So you've got your choice here, which is pretty impressive. Right? Seems very nice. Has that 15-inch aluminum speaker. Right? Metal grill. Okay. Now, here are my hopes for this bass amp, which would be really great because it's, well, it's 48 pounds. It's actually quite easy to pick up. It's not too bad. But I'm hoping that it gives me a kind of big, authentic bass sound, which would be really great because then I would have a small bass amp and a larger one if needed. Right? And they are very, very similar. And for my playing, it's really essential. Because when I do run it through the low end signal through a bass amp compared to the guitar signal through a guitar amp, it really makes a separation. And it's really convincing that that you are playing a bass guitar, and it fits so well with the guitar parts. So I guess the next thing to do is hopefully I didn't get scammed. I really don't think so, but well, let's take a listen to it. All right. Now I've got this Hartke bass amp. Everything is at 5. And right away I can tell it sounds like a bass, does sound like a bass amp. In fact, if I run a loop, I don't know, we'll just play a loop here, just. Okay, so that's really great. And I mean, everything's at 5 here, remember. And what I mean by that is all the knobs, volume, bass, treble, graphic EQ, limiter, all at 5. Now, let's say I wanted more, right? In fact, I'll loop that. How's that? First thing I'm going to do is turn up the bass switch, or the bass knob. Wow. I mean, that's a huge bass sound right there. Okay, and now let's mess around a little bit with the treble. Awesome. Now we haven't even gotten to the EQ part yet. Let's do that. Alright, that's kind of extreme. So let me try some other. Let's try it in a loop setting. Okay. Awesome. Man, that is just great. That's great. In fact, it reminds me very much of my larger heart key, the HT150. Right, much bigger amp. And this is very similar in sound, certainly, but also in volume and things. Now, what I'm really happy about is that kind of at neutral settings, it does a bass simulation job without stressing the amp too much, you know, pushing it too hard. And that all depends on the settings, I guess. You know, and you can tell when it's stressed too hard, you can hear it. Right, kind of a little snapping sound. Luckily, there's a limiter on here that'll protect it. You know, if I get too out of hand. Yeah, no complaints here, man. That's just great. And it's actually a little smaller than the Dean Bassola that I have, that just never really have that authentic bass sound, if you like. You know, and I mean, it is a practice amp, so. But here, I mean, I'd be more than happy to perform with this particular amp. You know, because it's plenty loud and the bass sound is really great. And I haven't done it here, but I've heard of the direct out sound, right? If I want to do a recording or go out to a PA, is very, very good as well. Man. And again, for the price that I paid, it's just can't go wrong. Can't go wrong at all. Alright, wanted to show you that. Very good. Alright, see you next time. Bye.